June 11th, 2025. 13 days ago, something extraordinary happened at the French Open that made millions of people cry tears of joy. When Coco Gauff walked onto the TNT Sports desk and found Venus Williams sitting there, it created what one broadcaster called the stars aligning perfectly. Today, we're hearing directly from the women who made this moment so special: Venus Williams, Serena Williams, and Coco Gauff, as they reflect on a conversation that moved the world.
I had no idea Venus was going to be at that desk. Like zero idea. When I walked over and saw her sitting there, I literally couldn't form words properly. That's why I said I'm having a little moment here, because I was trying not to completely break down on live television. This was Venus Williams, the reason I picked up a tennis racket. And there she was, treating me like an equal, like I belonged at that table with her. That 8-year-old girl hitting balls on those courts in Florida never imagined this moment would happen.
When I saw Coco's face light up, it took me right back to why Serena and I fought so hard to change tennis. We didn't just want to win tournaments, we wanted to create a world where moments like this were possible. Where a young black woman could walk onto a set and feel like she absolutely belonged there. When I told her I'm so proud of you, I meant it with everything in me. She represents everything we dreamed tennis could become.
I wasn't there in person, but I watched that interview probably 10 times. Seeing Venus and Coco together was like watching our father's vision come to life. Dad always said we were going to change tennis forever, and that moment, that was the proof. Not just that we succeeded, but that we created a pathway for someone like Coco to sit at that table as herself, fully confident, fully celebrated. That made me cry happy tears.
Let's start with that raw emotion, Coco. Walk us through what you were actually feeling in that moment.
Honestly, I was overwhelmed in the best way possible. When I said you and Serena are the reason I started this sport, that wasn't media training, that was just pure truth coming out. I've watched Venus play since I was tiny. I've studied her matches, her interviews, everything. And suddenly I'm sitting next to her and she's telling me she's proud of me. She's saying I have the goods and the attitude. It felt surreal. Like this is Venus Williams giving me advice about tennis and life. I wanted to soak up every word.
What people don't realize is that Coco was giving me just as much energy as I was giving her. Her passion, her authenticity, that's what tennis needs. When I told her about making a schedule that fits around happiness, I was sharing something I learned the hard way. But watching her, I could see she already understood that. She's found that balance between fierce competition and genuine joy that took me years to discover. She's going to inspire a whole generation of kids who think they can do tennis their way, not somebody else's way.
What we're hearing from both Venus and Coco illustrates the profound psychology of representation. When Coco says she couldn't form words properly, she's describing what happens when a childhood dream materializes in real time. And Venus's response, immediately affirming Coco's worth and place at that table, shows how true mentorship works. It's not just about sharing knowledge, it's about validating someone's right to occupy space and succeed.
Venus, there was a moment where you joked about Coco and Sloane beating you and said, "This is like therapy right now." What was really happening there?
Oh my God, that was so real. I was literally processing my feelings about losing to players I helped inspire. Like, it hurts when you lose, that's just being human. But sitting there with both of them, I realized those losses were actually victories. Every time Coco beat me, every time Sloane outplayed me, it meant the work Serena and I did was successful. We didn't just want to be the only ones, we wanted to be the first ones. When I said, "Is this what I deserve?" I was joking, but also processing that beautiful reality. I created my own competition, and that's exactly what was supposed to happen.
Venus calling it therapy was perfect because that's exactly what legacy work is. It's processing your purpose beyond your personal achievements. We didn't just play tennis to win for ourselves. We played to prove that Black women belonged on every court, in every conversation, in every winner's circle. When Venus sees Coco succeeding, she's seeing the fruits of all those battles we fought, all those doors we kicked down. That's why she could be so gracious about losing to them, because their success was always part of our mission.
What Venus said about deserving those wins, that meant everything to me. Because sometimes when you're young and beating legends, you question whether you really earned it. But hearing her say we deserved every victory, that we played incredible tennis, that was her giving me permission to own my success. She was saying, you didn't just get lucky, you're genuinely great. Coming from Venus Williams, that validation was priceless. It made me want to win even more, not just for me, but to honor what she and Serena built.
The conversation about fashion was fascinating. Coco, you talked about bringing Black culture into tennis through your style. Tell us about that.
Fashion is how I show up as my full self. When I said being a Black woman in this sport, so much part of our culture is fashion, I meant that tennis used to have this unspoken rule about looking a certain way, very conservative, very traditional. But that's not who I am. I want to wear bright colors, I want to make statements, I want young black girls to see me and think, she looks like me, she moves like me, she expresses herself like me. That leather jacket everyone talked about. That was me saying I belong here exactly as I am. Venus and Serena paved that road with their beads and braids and bold outfits. I'm just continuing that tradition.
When Coco talks about fashion as cultural expression, she gets it completely. Serena and I faced so much criticism early on for how we looked, how we styled our hair, what we wore. People wanted us to conform to make them comfortable, but we knew that young black girls were watching, and we wanted them to see that you could be authentically yourself and still be a champion. Coco wearing that leather jacket to the French Open, that's her saying this is what a champion looks like in 2025. And she's right, the game is better when players bring their whole selves to the court.
That fashion conversation was so important because it's about more than clothes, it's about the right to take up space on your own terms. When I wore that catsuit at the French Open, when Venus showed up with beads in her hair, when Coco rocks that leather jacket, we're all saying the same thing. This is what excellence looks like when it's not trying to make you comfortable. Fashion became our way of maintaining our cultural identity while dominating a sport that wanted us to disappear into their idea of respectability. Coco gets that, and she's taking it even further.
What these three women understand is that authenticity is actually a competitive advantage. When you're comfortable in your own skin, when you're not expending energy trying to be someone else, that confidence translates directly to better performance. The fashion conversation shows how they've transformed tennis from a sport that demanded conformity into one that celebrates individual expression. That's revolutionary, and it's inspiring young athletes across all sports to show up as themselves. Let's talk about the impact. Serena, what did this moment mean for the broader conversation about representation in sports?
This moment proved that representation works. When millions of people watched that interview and cried tears of joy, they weren't just crying about tennis, they were crying about possibility. They were seeing what happens when barriers don't just get broken, but completely disappear. Coco sitting at that table wasn't remarkable because she's black, it was remarkable because she's excellent. That's the world Venus and I fought to create, where black excellence in tennis is expected, celebrated, and normal. When little black girls watch that interview, they're not seeing someone who overcame tennis, they're seeing someone who belongs in tennis.
The response from fans has been incredible. People are tagging me in videos of their kids watching the interview and saying, I want to play tennis like Coco. Parents are telling me their daughters are asking for tennis lessons because they saw three black women sitting together talking about excellence and joy. That's the power of seeing yourself reflected in success. When Venus said, because of you and Sloane, there are so many young girls picking up rackets, she was talking about the ripple effect. Every little girl who sees us knows that tennis is for her too.
What makes this moment special is how organic it felt. We weren't trying to make a statement about representation, we were just three tennis players having a genuine conversation, but that's what real progress looks like. When diversity and excellence exist together so naturally that it doesn't feel forced or performative, that's when you know the work has been successful. The fact that this moment felt like a family reunion instead of a diversity showcase, that's everything Serena and I hope tennis could become.
What about the future? Coco, how do you see your role in continuing this legacy?
I feel the responsibility, but it doesn't feel heavy, it feels inspiring. Venus and Serena showed me that being a champion means more than winning tournaments. It means opening doors, changing conversations, and making sure the next generation has it even better than you did. I want to win Grand Slams, obviously, but I also want to be the bridge to whatever comes next. I want to mentor young players the way Venus mentored me in that moment. I want to make tennis even more inclusive, even more welcoming, even more representative of what the world actually looks like.
Coco doesn't need to carry the burden of being the only one because she's not the only one anymore. That's the beauty of what we've accomplished. She can just be excellent. She can focus on her tennis, her passions, her life, and trust that the pipeline we built will keep producing amazing players. When I see her success, when I see players like Sloane, when I see all the young black women coming up in tennis, I know our work created something sustainable. The future of tennis is going to be incredible because it's going to look like the world.
The future is in great hands with Coco and her generation. They don't see tennis as a white sport they're trying to break into. They see it as their sport, their space, their opportunity. That mindset shift is everything. When Coco wins her next Grand Slam, it won't be a story about overcoming odds or breaking barriers. It'll just be a story about excellence. And that's exactly what Venus and I dreamed of when we were little girls in Compton, hitting balls and believing we could change the world.
What we're hearing from these three women represents a complete transformation in how representation works in sports. We've moved from the era of firsts and onlys to an era of belonging and expectation. This TNT moment wasn't remarkable because three Black women were successful. It was remarkable because their success felt so natural, so earned, so joyful. That's the ultimate victory of the Williams legacy. They didn't just break barriers, they made those barriers irrelevant for the next generation.
As we wrap up, I want each of you to reflect on what that moment meant to you personally. Venus, let's start with you.
That moment was confirmation that everything Serena and I went through was worth it. Every snub, every criticism, every barrier we faced, it all led to being able to sit next to Coco as equals and celebrate each other's excellence. When I said the impact starts with mom and dad, I was thinking about how our parents believed in something impossible and made it reality. Now Coco is someone's impossible dream come true. That's legacy, that's love, that's why we play.
That moment changed me, not just because I got to meet my idol, but because Venus treated me like I belonged there. She didn't just give me advice, she gave me permission to take up space, to be confident, to own my success. When I walk onto courts now, I carry that energy with me. I remember that I'm not just playing for me, I'm playing for every little girl who needs to see that dreams really do come true. That's bigger than any trophy I could ever win.
Watching that moment from home, I felt this overwhelming sense of completion. Not because our work is done, but because we proved that change is possible. Venus and I set out to transform tennis, and seeing her and Coco together, laughing, sharing wisdom, celebrating each other, that was our vision realized. That little Black girl who used to practice on cracked courts in Compton could never have imagined this moment, but she dreamed it anyway. And sometimes, dreams become reality.
10 days ago at the French Open, we witnessed something beautiful. 3 generations of Black excellence sharing space, sharing stories, and sharing joy. Venus Williams, Serena Williams, and Coco Gauff showed us that the greatest victories aren't just the ones you achieve, they're the ones you make possible for others. From Compton courts to center court, from you don't belong here to make yourself at home, this is what progress looks like when champions choose to lift as they climb. When Venus said that success is bigger than your dreams, bigger than your own dreams for yourself, she captured the essence of legacy. It's not just about what you accomplish, it's about what you enable others to accomplish. Thank you to Venus, Serena, and Coco for sharing their stories, and thank you for watching. This is what happens when dreams become reality. They create space for even bigger dreams.